Alright, so as you probably noticed, the rebalances are here. So I'm going to be going over the specifics of the two weapon nerfs that didn't really give us specific numbers. So I'm going to be doing some tests, so let's get right into that.
Three, two, one.
Alright, radius test. Now, very interestingly, the radius damage falls off very quickly. At 5 meters, I'm already doing like half the damage, which is kind of crazy. You can see this is the points plotted from the data with the radius implant, just to, give us a larger data set. Now, the equation for the fall-off seems to be logarithmic in nature. As far as I can tell, the closest I can get is this equation right here with a max radius implant. So negative 0.29 times the natural logarithm of x plus 1 with an additional 1. And that is the decimal multiplier between 0 and 1, which is essentially just the percent of damage that you are dealing at any given range. Without the implant, it seems to be 0.27 as the factor in the front, but everything else remains the same. Now, obviously, these are not entirely precise, and probably you're not going to be doing this natural log calculation in your head while you're in the middle of a match anyway. But for the sake of argument, I wanted to throw this up here because I got very, very close to replicating the near exact data points, or at least close to what I expect should be the data points for each given range, just given the graph that we plotted. But anyway, yeah, that was not the only nerf to Disc Launcher. Of course, there is also the damage fall off over range, outside of optimal range, which means over 60 meters. So let's get into that. Okay, so of course, another graph, you can see the damage fall off is much steeper than it used to be, for sure. And with both of these nerfs in place, it is very interesting. It's definitely a different feeling. I think everyone at this point is just used to Disc Launcher being such an outstandingly overperforming weapon that if it were to even do decently, even if it was on par with, say, Minigun, which is a good weapon, it's just not. It's nowhere near the old Disc Launcher status. So for it to be, let's say, balanced, it would feel very, very weak in comparison. That said, I do have some concern with the amount of damage this seems to be dealing, because now maybe things usually do change after a while. I will note. Typically, once you've used something for a while, if it seems really bad at first, it typically becomes a little bit better. If it seems really good at first, it typically becomes a little bit more balanced. So there is that to be said, and I have extremely little experience using the rebalanced disc launchers. My guess is they will be more so of a guided weapon than the radius brawling weapon that they used to be, but that does leave some interesting holes where the radius damage weapons used to be. It does kind of raise some interesting questions that maybe will cause problems, maybe won't, but yeah, it's just some thoughts that I had. Now, of course, can't forget the Arc Torrent. Also got a bit of a change. Now, what's interesting about this, before I show the actual test, what's interesting about the Arc Torrent change is that the optimal range is static. No, it no longer changes with rank up. But what's more interesting is that there is this weird new system that has not previously existed. The range implant increases your maximum range, but it does not increase your optimal range. Every single implant in the game increases your optimal range, except for this one. And could I tell you exactly why? No, not really. It seems a little bit weird, which means without a range implant, you're just dealing full damage at any range, right? Your max range and your optimal range are the same, so you'll be dealing full damage, but then when you put a range implant on, you'll start to lose damage over that additional range, which means, arguably it's a little bit less important to get that range implant up, but it's just very interesting, so I just felt like I should probably note that. But yeah, let's get into the actual test now. Okay, so of course I have the stats for you here. As I said before, the damage starts to fall off after the original optimal range, regardless of whether you have the range implant on or not, which is very interesting. And then, of course, on top of that, Arctoran also got like a 17% damage nerf. So it's going to be a bit worse. With my, again, limited experience, it did not feel too much different than Arctorants normally feel for me in late game. But that is to say that Arctorants were never a good late game option anyway. So there is that to be said. I never actually encouraged anyone, even though Arctorant's great when you get it, I never actually encouraged anyone to heavily invest in it because it's not something that is very effective long term. As for your new options, I'm hedging my bets on Nade Launcher, I won't lie. But, yeah, only time will tell. Otherwise, that will be it from me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.